Okay, so we are going to join some table data together with our United States borders here today. And if we were using ArcGIS Pro, this process would just be a matter of adding the table to the program, using the joins and relates tool, picking your attribute, and then you would be good to go. But there are a couple different steps we have to do in ArcGIS Online in order to use this process. It's also important to note that this will probably only work if you are signed into a license that has credits available. This will probably not work on the free account because it does require analysis tools and typically specifically the geolocation, which typically requires credits. So you will need to be signed into your license in order to run this process. But the first thing we want to do is we will start on our main content page here in ArcGIS Online, and I want to add my table. So I'm going to click on New Item. And I'm just going to drag and drop my table into this box. And this looks like it's good, so we'll click Next. I'll check and just make sure all my field types and names look good, and that looks good, so I'll click the Next there. And in this window, the only thing we want to make sure is that it is pulling in our state name, because in this table and in our borders, we're just trying to connect it together by state. So the first thing I'll check is I'll just make sure that location information in one field is the option that we have here. And then in our field, I'm going to click on this and change that to state. And this is the attribute that is in the table that I'm joining. So you'll just make sure to note which column name has the state information. It'll tell us how many credits it's going to use. That's totally cool. We'll enter Next. And then in this window, we can rename our data if we want, store it in a folder. Once that looks good, we'll hit Save. Now, depending on how large this data set is, it may take a couple seconds, and that is okay. Sometimes it also relies on how good your internet is, how quick your browser might run. So if it takes a couple of seconds, or if you have a large table, that is totally okay. So we're gonna go, it looks like it loaded. We're gonna click on Map Viewer and just take a look and see what we've got. So here is our data, and we'll notice that a point has been added to each state that is representing our table. It's just showing up in the middle of the state right now. And what we actually want to do is we want that to join together with our state border data. So I'm just going to flip back to my states here, and I'm going to click on Add. And I'm just going to add my data my table data. So now we've got our borders and we've got our points on top of that. And so our next step is we want to join this information together. So I'm going to go to my analysis tools, and we'll go to tools, and then I just type in join, and we want this join features option. So we'll click on that. And there's a couple of things we want to do here. You want to make sure to put the correct layer in there. So I always check the tooltips to make sure I'm putting the right one in there. If you accidentally switch it around, it's really easy to tell. So this is the layer or table that will have attributes from the join layer appended to its attribute table. So the target layer, we actually want that to be our United States borders. And then the join layer is going to be our driving data. So that's our table, and that's our state borders. And for the settings, we want to use an attribute relationship because we're joining it by state names. This is a 1-to-1 relationship, so this is important to note that the state names have to have the same formatting, the same exact spacing as the table and in the border data. If this does not work, it's typically because maybe something is capitalized in one set of data and not the other. Maybe there are some rogue spaces at the end of the different state names. So there's a variety of things you can check. Just make sure that is a complete one-to-one relationship in order for it to work. So here I know in my state borders that we want to do the name, and then in our join field it's going to be state. So there are two name fields there. And join operation one-to-one, that's exactly what we want. We can leave the rest of this as is for the most part, but we do want to give it a new name. So I'm just going to say US driving data by state. And then you usually will have to estimate credits. It will require you to do that most of the time before you run this. So if you hit that, then you're able to do run. So we'll click on run. And like I said, this process may take a couple of seconds. It might take a couple of minutes. That is totally okay. You can check the status by checking this history right here and see if it's running. So we'll just give that a couple of minutes. So that took about a minute or so for my browser to complete, and it looks like it was successful. So now we're going to zoom in and we're going to turn off our original sets of data here. So I'm going to turn off the driving data. I'm going to turn off my original state borders. And now we have a new layer of data here. If I click on the states, my driving data is now joined to my state borders. So there are just a couple of extra steps. You have to add that table kind of separately and then actually render it, which we don't necessarily have to do in Pro, but you do have to do that step in ArcGIS Online before joining the data together with your shapefile or your feature layer, whatever you are using in ArcGIS Online. And once that process is complete, then you are able to visualize that table data in ArcGIS Online and design it however you would like.